Today we are installing an AMGO 4-post lift, model 408-P. This is the 8,000 pound unit. I went with the size because I have a couple older vehicles that are kind of wide. I just felt more comfortable getting in and off the lifts with this. The downside is I only have 22 feet of working area in the shop, this section of my shop. So it's tight. It will work, but it's tight. One thing I will do is these can be relocated. There is a relocation kit. I'm just going to build one that will put this operating unit here, recess it in here a bit, because I'm only going to have about 20 inches between the posts on the lift. So another couple things you want to be concerned about is your overhead height, which is something you want to take into account. So what we did was I did a lot of measuring on the vehicles that I own, and this area here is pretty close to center. I'm a bit forward towards the back of the garage, I should say, on the place in the lift, but it worked out real well. The garage door opens, it clears, no problem, so I'm good to go. That's something else you want to consider. So the first thing to do as far as installing the lift is once you want to put it, I snapped the line, center line on the floor for the garage doors. So I get the center line, and then from there you measure and you put your offset on. And the lift that I currently have, I offset that 4 inches towards that wall with 9-foot wide garage doors. That was no problem. This one over here, because this garage door is so close to the wall, I could not offset 4 inches. So this lift that they're about to install here, that is going to be dead center on the door. So let's get started. Okay, I have all 4 posts in place. I had the line snapped out. Make sure you do a diagonal and make sure this is perfectly square. It works better when it's perfectly square. The other thing I did, if you look down, after I get them in place, I drew a line all the way around with a magic marker, because they're going to be knocking these all around as you're assembling this lift. So this way you can just easily put them back in place where they belong. So the next thing to do is you want to get the 2 cross members or cross beams in place. The open slot that you see, that faces in on both sides. It faces in. And also you have to make sure that where the safety handle release bar goes, which is right there, that is on the same side as where the pump goes. So, and then you install the safety ladder. The safety ladder comes double nutted at the top. Just take the top nut off, move the second nut down, leave about 1.5 inches showing on the thread. You then slide the safety ladder in between the outside roller and the next roller in, all the way down through. Then just simply slide it up into the back hole, and then with the other nut, just turn it until it's tight. Just snug it. Don't bother tightening it, because you have to adjust this once everything's in place. So you get that done to all 4. Everything's sitting in place. The next thing will be getting the platforms on. Unfortunately, because of the rain, I had to move these platforms inside before I really wanted to. So as you can see, this platform here, this is the one that has the pulley assembly. So that obviously goes on the side where the pump goes. Also, another thing is this lip right here. That lip right there. The lip goes on the inside on both of these. That's where your drip tray, the jack trays, everything else go. So the next thing you do is you raise the cross beams up to a working height, 36 inches roughly. They'll lock in on the safety ladder. Then you need to get the 2 platforms up into place on top of the safety beams. That is my next goal. I meant cross beams, not safety beams. Anyway, both platforms are installed. So you do the power side first. The reason is it has the pulley assembly underneath, and the pulley assembly sticks out slightly into here. So this one has to go on first. You got to tip the posts and the safety, the cross beams out just a bit to get them into where the pulley is. But it's a good fit. These are well made. After that, you want to bolt this on, and you use the two biggest bolts they have in the package, because you're also putting on this wheel stop. So the biggest ones here, that's what you want to use to bolt down through and to the wheel stop. So I've got power side in and the bolts snugged in place. This one is next. After that, you have these, it's called strengthening screws. You got two of these, front and back on both sides. So the next thing for me to do is get this all bolted together. Again, everything just snug, nothing tight yet. Okay, I have the platforms all bolted in. Again, just snug, nothing tight. These strengthening bolts here, these are a pain in the butt to put in. The reason is they're short and they do not penetrate through this cross beam. They just bolt into a nut that is welded onto the side of the cross beam. So they're very short, and with the lock washer and stuff, and if these aren't real tight, if these aren't already tight against this nut, it's impossible to get these started. I actually ended up taking a bar clamp and clamped across here to pull this in tight to get the bottom one started. And once you get the bottom one started, you can pull it in and get the top in. So again, those took some time to get in. I also installed all these nylon slides. I got one loose over here. So there's 4 of these nylon slides per post. Very simple. They just go in, slide in like this. And you got the washer and the bolt here. They go in, it's slotted, slides down in, the bolt in. So again, I just put these on snug. And now the next thing the directions call for is to plumb up all the posts and plumb them up and shim them. So again, the feet, they're all knocked out of whack. So I'm gonna go through, put everything back in position, get all the posts plumbed up. Then I'm gonna go through and tighten down everything. The plans call for tightening down these here now before you plumb these up. But the salesman who I bought the lifts from warned me that he said that the directions were kind of suspect, and so that's one thing I don't think is right. That no, you should get these plumbed up before you start tightening up these slide mechanisms. So that's my next step. After everything's tightened up, it'll be time to get the cables installed. Okay, I have all the cables installed. They all basically go in the same way. Again, they're double nutted at the top. So just take the top nut off, wind the second nut, the bottom nut down, show 1.5 inches of thread, slip it up in the hole that corresponds over the hole that's over the pulley. There's 2 holes up there. So just make sure you line it up so it's straight. And just feed it up through, again, hand tight, because again, these are all going to be adjusted once you get the lift up and running. Basically, I mean, the cable comes all complete inside. The cables are just tied back, a zip tie, so you just, cut them, feed them through. Just follow the guide here and make sure that, they're on the right pulleys and stuff. The other thing you want to do is you want to pull the piston ahead about 2 feet to give you enough slack to get the cables up. Otherwise, it'll be a tug of war. So, but anyway, they just feed right in through. As you can see, they feed up through here. They come up by, you got this nylon roller right here, which is tension roller. After you do that, there is a spring like this thing here, and that just attaches from this point here up to this point here, which just holds tension, you know, on the cable. So it's pretty basic. It was quick and easy to do all this. And on to the pump assembly. Okay, these are the connections on the side of the pump system. So you got the release handle here. So right here is a 90-degree fitting that screws into here. That is obviously for the hydraulic. That's a pressure line. I just put this fitting on here. That is the return line. And the reason I'm doing this before I mount it is, like I said earlier in the video, I was tight to the wall, so I ended up building a relocation bracket so I can slide the pump in and operate it from this side, since I won't be able to reach it obviously if I mount it the regular way. So anyway, I want to take and get this plumbed in first before I mount it on. The other thing I wanted to show you is this fitting here. This fitting here goes on the bottom hole down there. Do not put it in the top hole because it interferes with the safety bar that comes across. So it goes in the bottom hole, and this is what your hydraulic line goes onto. And make sure this long side goes in, and there's a nut on the other side that holds it in tight. And then the other hydraulic holes will go from here over to the piston. Okay, the safety bar release handle, there's two long bars. One end, they both have a taper on them with two holes, all right? The tapered end goes through here, and you line the holes up, and you bolt them through. I still got to put the other bolt in right there. And this is for the back side of the lift. And then it runs underneath, and there is a flange right here with a hole that fits into, and right here is a connecting sleeve. So you put this connecting sleeve on. There's a slot on this side, and there's a hole in this bar which is threaded. It bolts in. On the other side here, there's just a threaded hole in this bolt. So you bolt this one in first, then line up with that. Bolts together nice and solid. And this runs through all the way. And I already got the handle connected, but yeah, pretty simple. It goes on. Everything bolted up real nice. And one thing I forgot to mention on the safety bar assembly, where it comes across and you got the connector tube, there's two holes on the connector tube. Make sure you use the further hole back. If you use this hole here, the rear latches will not release far enough to disengage. So make sure you use this one. You can see they're offset. Okay, the hydraulic system is all installed. So just remember that the hydraulic line is under pressure. The 90-degree angle fitting that goes right here, that connects to the fitting that you thread into the lift. And they got these nice little brackets that are welded, so you just feed it through the brackets. Keeps everything up snug out of the way. The one thing to be aware of, which I ran into on the other lift, is this fitting right here that goes on the front side of the cylinder. They both came, they were pointed down. So, and the thing is, these have to run up over the cable, not under the cable. So both of the lifts, I had to take and rotate the piston up. Very easy. Just come down here, loosen these two bolts up, rotate the piston up, tighten these bolts down, done deal. But make sure you do that so everything clears nice. Okay, for the power for these, it's 110. They call for 30 amp single pole breaker. You can use 12-2 wire. I picked up a 100-foot roll of 12-2 MC and ran that from the other side of my shop, which is about 60 feet away over to here. And what I did was, I have two lifts side by side. So I just ran one wire from the panel over to that box, and then went over, to that outlet. Technically, you're supposed to have, one per lift, but the only people who run on these lifts is gonna be me and my wife. There is no chance of us ever running both lifts at the same time. And if that's the same case with you, just running a single wire for both lifts is perfectly fine. Okay, the lift is operational. I ran it up and down. Make sure you run it all the way up and down. It will take and clear all the air out of the system. The one issue I ran into when I built the garage 20 years ago, I was not expecting to put lift in here. So I had my flat work contractor do a 3-inch pitch from the back out to the door. So between these two lift posts, the floor drops 1.5 inches, and you're supposed to get this thing level, but there was just not enough play in the threads, in these adjustment threads in the top to get, to get it perfectly level from front to back. So as you can see, I have a lot more thread showing on the back than I do on the front. So I'm still about 5/8 out as far as level, but everything works. The posts are plumb. From side to side, it's perfect, perfectly level. So it's just from front to back. The other thing you got to do, you got to make sure you adjust everything. So when the lift goes up, you can hear all the posts, all the safety locks snap in at once. That means everything's adjusted properly. So everything's adjusted properly, so I'm gonna do a massive cleanup, then get a car in the lift and run it up and down. It's gonna stretch the cables out. So my word of advice is do not take and put the wrenches away for the adjustments, because after you run the car on it a few times, it's gonna stretch the cables and you'll be adjusting this again. Both lifts are in and functioning. Just a couple notes. I did go with the 408P model. They're a bit wider, which helped out with the bigger cars as far as getting in between the columns without any issues. I have 22 feet of clearance from that wall to that wall over there, and that's as small as you want to go with two lifts of this width. I did have to take and relocate this power unit here. Otherwise it wouldn't work, so I just built a 90-degree bracket, mounted it, works fine. I also recessed this one back. They do make a kit, but I just built one. I actually went back too far, so in the springtime I'll bump it out a couple inches. But you want to do that. I only have 22 inches of space between the columns here, so without relocating the back, once I get the other car in here, it would be a pain in the butt to try to squeeze by. The other thing to mention is on the clearance, 69 inches of clearance once you get up in the air. That's fine for what I'm doing, but some of these crossovers, like my wife's Honda CRV, with the rails they have on the roof and those built-in antennas, you're looking at 72 inches. So you cannot fit in underneath these lifts. So you have to be going to a higher lift. The next one up was the HP model, which gave me an extra 14 inches of height for another $500, which I didn't need, but you really want to measure and make sure you can fit your vehicles in. The other thing I'm going to do in the spring is, they say you don't have to anchor these units down, but they do walk a little bit on you when you're moving stuff in and out. And so as you can see, I originally traced out where they were supposed to be, and they've all moved just a hair. So in the spring, I'm just going to take and relocate them where they're supposed to be and just anchor the insides with 2 bolts all the way around just to be on the safe side. But other than that, very happy with the lifts.